What if the United States, Mexico, and Canada became one country? If all three nations joined together to form a single country, they could call it COM, or the United Nations of COM, and it would instantly become the most powerful country in the world. Economically, this union would...
That's enough internet for today. Recently, Mr. Donald Trump proposed a 25% tariff on Canadian and Mexican goods. And what's even more interesting is that he mentioned making Canada the 51st state of the US and potentially buying the Panama Canal and acquiring Greenland. Now the question is this a real plan or is this all just a joke? Now, to understand what's going on, I want to explain some of the political and economic backgrounds of what tariffs are and how we've used them in the past, and this will help explain why Mr. Trump is thinking of doing all of this. Now, a tariff is essentially a tax on imported goods. When a country imposes a tariff, it makes international products more expensive. Now, the idea is to get people to buy products made in the home country instead, which can protect local industries and jobs. So for example, if the US places a 25% tariff on Canadian lumber, American companies that buy Canadian lumber would have to pay an extra 25% on top of their original price. And that might discourage them from doing so in the future. Now historically though, that was the main way the United States used to make money. Before the introduction of income taxes in 1913, the federal government was almost exclusively funded through tariffs. And during the 18th and 19th centuries, tariffs not only paid for government operations, but they played a huge role in forming the country's economy by protecting startup industries from foreign competition. And that's where we're gonna start. So let me explain Donald Trump's ultimate design, what he wants to do, why he wants to do it, and show you how this might affect all of us. So let's get into it. Hi, my name is Andrei Jikh. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for the tariffs. This video topic kind of reminds me of those essays I had to write about in school, and I always thought there was such a dry and boring thing to talk about. So I'm gonna try to make this video exactly like those essays, with a 5,000 word minimum. So here's how I like to think about all of this. Mr. Trump wants to help the US economy grow. And one of the ways he wants to do that is through expansion and the use of tariffs. Now, most people, when they think of the United States and its rise to power, they think about the American dream and individualism and businesses and innovation, but there's another less glamorous part of US history that played a really big role in how the country got here: tariffs. In the late 18th and 19th centuries, for example, the United States was the economic equivalent of
"You've got mail."
AOL. It was a tech startup. And the country was competing with huge corporate giants like Britain, and their industrial machinery and advanced economies just dominated global trade. So for the US to grow, it needed a strategy to help its younger industries, and that's where tariffs came in. This also was one of the founding fathers' dream. It was Alexander Hamilton's vision for the United States when he published a report called Manufactures. Now, the earliest example, the first tariff the US ever imposed, was started on July 4th, 1789. And the idea was that any imported goods into the US would have what's called a duty rate, on average between 5 to 15%. And usually things that were needed, like raw materials, would have the lower 5% rate, and luxury items that were not needed, like cheese or wine, would be taxed at the higher 15% rate. Now this created a huge source of income for the country back when the federal government didn't really have any income taxes. Now, other examples of tariffs were protective tariffs like the Tariff of 1816, which was designed to also shield American manufacturers from cheaper British goods. And all these tariffs had the effect of growing industries in the northern US, like the textile industry, steel, and machinery. But on the flip side, it harmed southern US industries, like farmers and agriculture, because they relied on exporting their goods to foreign markets and importing manufactured products, which also became more expensive due to the tariffs. So, long story short, tariffs did three important things. Number one, they gave the US a reliable source of income to pay off war debts from the Revolutionary War. Number two, it helped fund the federal government and everything it was spending money on. And number three, it protected jobs and industries. That's what tariffs do. That's what they are. They are neither good or bad. It just depends on what they are and how they are created. But there's also kind of a catch. And the catch is that tariffs work both ways. Because countries are like people, they can be petty too. So when you put restrictions on their trade, they tend to do it back. Now, in the modern era, today, countries like Canada, Mexico, and China have imposed their own tariffs on American goods. And here's what they're doing and how much it's costing the US. I'm going to use 3 examples: Canada, Mexico, and China. For example, when the Trump administration imposed tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel in 2018, Canada said, well, then we're just going to put tariffs on US products like ketchup, whiskey, and motorboats because that's all we buy from you guys. Now, example 2 is Mexico. And you've probably seen those awkward exchanges between the US and Mexico because there are tensions.
I'm not going to pay for that wall. He should pay for it. He's got the money.
And that's because Mexico has imposed tariffs on American agricultural products, including pork, apples, cheese, also in response to US steel and aluminum tariffs. As you can tell, we source a lot of our steel and aluminum from other countries. And this directly impacts American farmers and ranchers who really depend on Mexico as an export market. Now, example 3, though, is China. And China is the US's biggest trading partner. China's also used Mexico to get around US tariffs, and it uses its own tariffs against the US. There are tariffs as high as 25% on American products like soybeans, cars, and even lobsters, which lowers the demand for these products in the Chinese market because Chinese people don't want to buy American products if they're too expensive. Our lobsters are good, but they're not that good. And all of this has led to billions of dollars in losses. Now, how much specifically, though? Here are some of the estimates of how much this is costing the United States economy. According to the Congressional Budget Office and various trade reports, U.S. exporters pay billions of dollars per year in tariffs to other countries. U.S. exporters paid over $35 billion in what are called retaliatory tariffs during the height of the trade war to China. So Donald Trump comes in, looks at all this and says, okay, we're paying billions of dollars to trade with these countries, even though we help and support these countries in many ways. And he feels like the United States is a lot more fair to them than they are to us. And that's where Donald Trump's plan to fix all of this comes in. Now let's take a step back to Mr. Trump's first term in 2017. That year, the US stock market did really well. The S&P 500 went up over 19%, but since 1993, during the first year of a president's term, the stock market has averaged gains of about 16%, with some years hitting as high as 31%. Now you can search for stocks that might benefit from Mr. Trump's presidency using today's sponsor, Moomoo. For example, you can search for stocks on topics that interest you using themes. So if you want to search for Trump, you can enter it into the search bar and you'll find a list of related stocks. Then you can filter them by metrics like market cap and trading volume, and once you've selected a stock, the detailed quote page offers one of the most comprehensive details about a stock in an easy-to-read format. And a feature I really like is called trend projection, which uses AI to compare historical patterns to see what stocks have done in the past. And because Moomoo integrates pro financial information, you're saving almost $600 a year from paying for those subscriptions yourself, and this comes free with Moomoo. Right now, they're offering up to 15 free stocks for new users. Deposit $100 to get 5 free stocks, or deposit $1,000 or more to unlock 10 additional free stocks. That's 15 free stocks total, but make sure you maintain your account balance for at least 60 days to unlock the stocks, plus enjoy a limited time 8.1% APY with their cash sweep account. Terms and conditions apply, so check out the link in the description below. And now let's get back to Mr. Trump's plan. Donald Trump is proposing an additional 10% tariff on all Chinese goods and another 25% tariff on all products from Mexico and Canada.
Some might say it's economic nationalism. I call it common sense. I call it America first.
Now, right now, according to data from the Census Bureau, Americans spend more than $1 trillion on goods from those 3 countries each year, which means the US could potentially make a lot of money from these tariffs. But there's another reason why tariffs are actually created, and it has nothing to do with making money. Instead, it's more of a pressure point for those countries to do something about problems that are spilling over into the US. And there's 2 main issues that Mr. Trump ran on for president that helped him win: illegal immigration and drug trafficking.
And drugs are pouring in. Almost as importantly, drugs are pouring in, maybe more importantly.
Now, Mr. Trump argues that both countries, Mexico and Canada, need to take more responsibility for preventing these problems from spilling over into the United States. Illegal crossings, for example, at the US-Canada border have surged dramatically in recent years. From 2021 to 2024, there was a huge increase. And while these numbers are small compared at the US-Mexico border, it's still a growing problem. The Swanton sector, for example, which covers part of Quebec, Vermont, and New York, has become a hotspot with reports of organized smuggling networks exploiting Canada's huge but very lightly patrolled border. And this increase also points to the northern border becoming an alternative route for immigrants seeking entry into the US illegally. And in 2024, US border agents seized 43 pounds of fentanyl, 72 pounds of heroin, and 185 pounds of methamphetamine crossing from Canada. And while it's true that these amounts are way smaller than what's intercepted at the southern border, experts believe that's because Canadian ports limit their inspections to only about 1% of incoming containers. And that makes it way easier for things to slip through unnoticed and report these smaller numbers. This creates vulnerabilities in the supply chain, and it allows for organized crime networks to exploit gaps in enforcement. And by creating these tariffs, Mr. Trump is telling Canada and Mexico, hey, if you don't want to pay more for US products, fix your borders, control your crime, and keep the illegal immigrants out of the US. So now that I've hopefully explained the background behind how the world is positioned, this will help answer the ultimate question of this video, which is, how does making Canada the 51st state, getting the Panama Canal, and buying Greenland have anything to do with this? And here's why this has everything to do with tariffs. Because tariffs are a way for Mr. Trump to tell the world he's putting America first again. And those tariffs are just a starting point in negotiating better terms for the United States. So let me start with Greenland, the place that most people think is actually Iceland, but is really Greenland. Now, fun fact, Greenland is a territory within the Kingdom of Denmark, which means it has significant self-rule, but it's actually under Denmark's official legal structure. But why Greenland is because Greenland has huge reserves of rare earth minerals, natural gas, and oil. And that means Greenland may need more freedom soon. Now, Greenland has a strategic position in the Arctic, which, in the eyes of the United States, makes it a valuable asset for national security and economic interests. And control over Greenland could give the US an advantage in Arctic navigation, especially as global warming will eventually open new shipping routes. And believe it or not, this idea of the US buying Greenland isn't even new. Because in 1946, President Harry Truman at the time offered Denmark $100 million worth of gold in exchange for Greenland, which is equivalent to about 1.3 billion in today's dollars when adjusted for inflation. Now, in 2019, during his first presidency, Mr. Trump said that he wanted to buy Greenland, but he never made any formal offers, at least not one the public knows about. But at the time, there were estimates that Greenland could be valued in the range of between 500 billion to 1 trillion. But at least for now, both Denmark and Greenland are strongly disagreeing and saying that Greenland is not for sale. Then, of course, there's the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal is one of the most important trade routes in the world, connecting over 140 routes and accounts for about 6% of global trade. That's huge. Its strategic location between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans has made it a very big interest for the United States. And for almost 100 years, the US controlled the canal and the surrounding canal zone. And the US, in fact, used to own the Panama Canal. The US gained control of it in 1904 when it bought the project from the French for $40 million. And it negotiated a deal with Panama for an additional $10 million up front and $250,000 per year, which of course at the time was a lot of money. But you can see how over the course of 100 years, how inflation has eaten away at that money's value. And by 1914, after about a decade of work, the canal opened and it revolutionized trading for the western part of the world. But for the US, it wasn't just about trade, it was also about its military strategy, which allowed the US to move through it really quickly. But it also came at a cost. Even though the canal helped with America's interests, it created resentment in Panama. This resentment eventually led to negotiations, which led to something called the Torrijos-Carter Treaties of 1977, which promised Panama that it would assume full control of the canal by December 31st, 1999. Today, the canal generates billions of dollars worth of revenue for Panama, and it's the most important trade route for the western part of the world. And that's why Mr. Trump wants it back. And then, of course, there's Canada potentially becoming the 51st state of the US. Now, Canada is the second biggest trading partner for the US, with what's called bilateral trade amounting to over $600 billion per year. That means every single day, about $1.7 billion worth of stuff and services crosses the US-Canada border. Now, by making Canada the 51st state, Mr. Trump's vision could get rid of barriers and tariffs, creating a huge, unified North American economy. Now, the US already imports about 60% of Canada's oil production, making it the top foreign supplier of energy to the United States. And by integrating Canada into the US, Mr. Trump could get rid of the effects of foreign tariffs. He could secure Canada's resources and potentially create an economic giant that just dwarfs any other country. Now, actually doing this, though, is of course probably impossible because Canada is very independent with its own government, its own culture, and its own identity. But if you made it this far into the video, here's what I think about all of this and why I think it's really happening. I think Mr. Trump is just very clever, and what I think he's doing is a concept called anchoring. Now, anchoring is about presenting an extreme or outrageous demand at the start of a negotiation to set the tone, which shifts the perceived starting point. So when he says something outrageous, another country might say, "Do you want to buy us? Surely you can't be serious." And he's like, "I am serious, and don't call me Shirley." What this actually does is that it makes follow-up demands way more reasonable sounding, and lesser compromises will feel like a big win for the other party, even if the final agreement is still significantly favorable to the initiator. Now, Mr. Trump has actually done this before, and it's worked effectively. He did it, if you remember, when he told everyone that NAFTA was the worst trade deal ever. Remember those headlines? He said he would cancel the entire deal. Canada and Mexico freaked out, and he was able to make changes to that deal, which they otherwise would have never agreed to. In fact, this anchoring concept has been used to make some of the biggest deals throughout history. But as far as how this will affect all of our investments and retirement accounts, the big takeaway is this. This video was a 5,000-word essay, and tariffs are super complicated. Even though I can kind of understand what's going on, I don't think I'm smart enough to figure out all the complexity of how a specific tariff will affect which specific stock. Now, I can take a guess just like anyone else, but I'm not going to bet my money on it. That's why I keep it simple, and I dollar cost average into the stock market by buying an ETF, ticker symbol VTI, which gives me exposure to the entire market. That way, I'm not trying to pick winners and losers, because whether it's tech or consumer staples, this ETF has a piece of everything. And over the long term, as long as the US economy is growing, it's been a winning strategy. That and Bitcoin, but you already knew that. So I think Mr. Trump proposing these seemingly outlandish acquisitions like the Panama Canal and Canada and Greenland is just a way to anchor and reset expectations of putting America first. But with the real policies and what the real demands will be, time will tell. That's just my theory, but whether his ideas will actually happen, though, is something I'd love to hear from you. Let me know down in the comments below. As always, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. I'd love to see you back here next week. Hope you had a wonderful new year. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.